Okay, so good morning once again to all of us. We are continuing our class from last week discussions. We were able to look at errors, and we stated the two types of errors. We picked the first type, which is errors that do not affect the agreement of the trial balance. We're able to look at 2 out of 7. I indicated to you that there are 7 of these errors that do not affect the agreement of the trial balance. And we looked at 2 of them, i.e. the error of commission and error of omission. So today we are continuing with the third one, but by way of getting you to appreciate, let me restate all the 7. So errors affect the agreement of the trial balance. So we have seen the error of omission, we have seen the error of commission, and I want to believe you are all comfortable with the assignment. Okay, so today we are going to look at the next one, which is error of principle. Error of principle. So please pay attention since we are adding on. So what is error of principle? Error of principle. Let me ask if any of you has read around it. What can you tell us about error of principle? Yes, Austin, let's hear.
So, please, what I know about the error of principle is that it's an error that occurs when the accountant puts the right amount, but this one is in the wrong type of account. Not like the wrong account, but a wrong type, like maybe sale of an equipment, but you record it in the sales account.
Okay.
That's what I understand.
Okay, so thank you very much. Any other version from Bridget, Augustine, or Zoe? Error of principle. So yes, Austin puts it well. So this type of error occurs when the double entry principle is violated, right? That is why it gets its name, error of principle. But here the violation is in or stems from the accountant posting the right entry to the wrong class or wrong type of account, as Austin used. But I would recommend you use class, wrong class of account. Okay, so let me write that for us. So it occurs when the correct entry is made in the wrong class of account. In the wrong class of account. So I want you to appreciate that in accounting, we have classes of accounts, right? We have assets, we have liabilities, we have capital, we have expenses, and then we have income, right? These are the classes of accounts that we do have. So it will be very prudent for you to always ensure that whatever entry you are making in a particular class of account is the right class of account you are putting it in. Okay, so you always need to put the right entry in the right class of account. So if it's an expense, put it in an expense account. Don't put it in an asset account. Now, it happens because, some of the elements behave the same way. And by that, I mean, for example, assets and expenses behave the same way because they all have debit balances, right? And then liability, capital, and income also have similar or same characteristics. So sometimes the accountant may make the mistake of putting an expense in an asset account, or putting an asset in an expense account, or doing same when it comes to income, liability, and capital, right? Okay, so the example that Akoli made, so example is when, for example, you sold an equipment. You sold an equipment. An equipment is an asset. If you sell an asset, you don't put it in sales account. You sell a fixed asset, you don't put it in a sales account because it is not sale of goods. Sales account only acknowledges sale of goods. So if you sell anything other than goods, then that cannot be in sales account. If you sell an equipment or if you sell any other asset, the best account to record this will be the disposal account, the asset disposal account. So the disposal account serves as the sales account for fixed assets. So note that. Now let me give you, examples based on this category. So example one is when you record sale of assets in sales account. That's one category. Another one is when you record purchase of an asset in purchases account. You see, when you purchase an asset, you don't put it in purchase account, you put it in the asset account. So if the accountant makes the mistake and put it in the purchase account, that should be corrected. The third one is when you record an expense in an asset account. Then 4, when you record an asset in an expense account. So these two may come in the form of, for example, we paid rent of a building. Then instead of opening rent account, which is an expense, we opened the building account and we debited it with the rent, which is technically wrong because rent is an expense. It's supposed to be in rent expense account, not the building account. So these are the 4 main categories of error of principle you may come across. So take note of them. Okay. Now, when you're able to determine this, how do you correct it? So let's look at how to correct it. So how to correct. So normally, it's similar to the error of commission, right? Commission is you put it in the wrong person, but here you are putting it in the wrong class. So to correct it, you have to pass an entry to cancel it in the wrong class of account. And then you pass an entry to put it in the right class of account. Okay, so pass the necessary entry to cancel or to remove from the wrong class of account. Place it in the right class of account. Okay. I hope I've been able to explain this error to you very well. So let me put in a classical example. So maybe on 15th of March or 15th March 2026, payment of rent was recorded in the building account. So payment of rent 200 was recorded in building account, right? So this is a typical error of principle. Why? But when you pay rent, you don't record it in building. Building is an asset and rent is an expense. So what you are doing technically is you are recording an expense in an asset account. And that is an error of principle. You are putting the entry in the wrong class of account. Okay. So in order to correct it, what it means is that here we have to pass the entry to cancel the entry we made in the wrong account here, which is the building account. And then we'll put it in the right account, which is the rent account. Does that make sense? Can we attempt to see in this case which account to debit and which account to credit? So you paid for rent and you recorded it in building account. This is an error. How would you correct it? Or what entry would you pass? Which account will you debit? Which account will you credit to correct this error? Let me see. Prof. Augustine Akole, would you give it a try?
Sir, please, good morning.
Good morning.
Sir, please, can you come again?
So I'm asking what entries you pass to correct this error of recording rent in building account.
Yes, sir, please, because it's payment of rent. You because you credit you would you debit account. Sir, please, we debit rent. The name of the building. You debit rent, the name of the building.
And we credit who?
I credit the building, name of rent.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. That is very true. That is accurate. Thank you, Prof. So you see, one technique you'd use in getting this error, correction of errors very simple is you need to know what should have been done correctly. Okay, then you now compare with what have been done wrongly, and then you can reconcile, right? So let me do it this way. Even though you have to appreciate a type of error with examples so that immediately you see the error, you can tell that this is an error of principle and an error of omission or commission. It's always important to also know the double entry on the particular transaction for which an error has been made. So here, look at it technically. It says that payment of rent 200 was recorded in the building account. So your first analysis should be that what transaction is this? And we can all agree that it is payment of rent. So then you now visit your double entry principle. When you pay rent, what are the entries that you are supposed to pass correctly? And I believe you can all agree that when you pay rent, you debit rent and you credit your cash. Right? So with this knowledge, you now assess what mistake did the accountant do? The mistake the accountant did was that this rent was recorded in building account. So it means that instead of debiting rent, the accountant has gone to debit to building. So he has debited building with rent of what? 200. This is what the accountant has done. And this is the error you have been told, that he recorded it in building account. This is wrong. So you, upon seeing this error, say, no, I have to pass an entry to cancel this or remove this in this wrong class. So if you want to pass an entry to cancel this, you obviously need to credit it. That is why he indicated that you credit the building. So after canceling, you now go and put it in the right account, the rent account. So the double entry will be you debit rent and you credit who? Building. So let me do that. So in the building account, you credit it with rent, because the corresponding entry will be in rent account 200. And then you debit rent in the name of building, which is 200. Now, immediately you do this, you see that the error will be cancelled, or the entry has been removed from the wrong class of account, the building, and it has been put in the right account, rent account. Okay, Augustine, you have a question. Let me hear you. Go ahead.
Sir, please, it's not a question.
Okay.
Sir, please, our teacher said that she's having problem joining the class in the link.
Okay, so is it his network or I have to do something for him?
Sir, please, I think it's her network. It's her network.
Okay, no problem. Well noted. So I'll share
that
the
when she, yes, please.
Okay, thank you for that. So I believe you all got the understanding of the error of principle, right? Okay. Please, if you didn't understand anything, ask me so that I can go by it. Okay, the next error we'll look at, 4 more to go, will be the error of duplication. Duplication, which is very simple. Error of duplication. So we are saying that this error occurs, so it occurs when the transaction is recorded twice in the books. Okay, when the transaction is recorded twice. So example, goods sold to Ama 5 million Ghana cedis was recorded twice in the books. Or sometimes the examiner will say was debited to Ama twice and credited to the sales account twice. So you'd always see the duplication explicitly stated in the question, right? So let me give an example. So example, cash paid to AC, a creditor, has been recorded in the books twice.
Yeah.
Okay. So cash paid to AC, or let me add the value, cash of $1,000 paid to AC has been recorded in the books twice. So immediately you see this, you see it's an error of what? Duplication. Now, how do you correct it? It's very simple. Please, who will tell me how to correct this error? How do we correct this error? Yes. Please feel free and talk. Okay, I'm going to call a few people to attempt. Prof. Prof. Zoe. So the transaction has been recorded twice. How do we correct it? Or what do we do to correct it? I'm waiting for a reaction from Zoe. Okay, let me pass it on to Professor Asida Owusu Ansan. I'm sure maybe Zoe has a challenge with the microphone on that. Prof. Owusu Ansan. Just share your idea, okay? You know, in my class, there was nothing like that. So for this duplication, error of duplication, I think Austin wants to, yeah, Austin, go ahead. Let's see. Hello, Austin.
Say, please, I think with this error, we debit AC's account. So I will remove the extra credit and I will credit cash account. Because like AC, the payment to AC was recorded twice, so the cash is like reduced by 2,000, but it should rather be 1,000. And AC's account will somehow show 2,000 paid. So to fix this, I think we should add 1,000 back to the cash, and then we reduce AC payment by 1,000.
Okay, so what specific entries would you make? As in you debit to and you credit to.
So I said you debit AC and credit cash.
Would you rather not be tripling the error? Anyway, let me, yeah, Portia.
So please, good morning.
Good morning.
So please, we'll debit cash and credit AC because AC's account has been overstated by 1,000 again. So we have to reverse the entry by reducing AC's balance and send it to cash. That is by debiting cash. Cash will receive it. Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I hope Austin appreciate, but let me go over it. So you see, in answering question, if you are asked to how do you correct error of duplication, right? Your answer would be that you pass the necessary entry to cancel one of the two entries. Okay, so generally when they ask you, you see, I want you to appreciate that I give you the general correction of the errors before we now go into the specifics. The specifics are the scenarios where you have to now tell that you debit this account, you credit this account. But generally, if you are asked how would you correct an error of duplication, you see, you cannot go specifically and say debit this person or debit that person. You will need a specific example before you can do that. So generally, if you are correcting an error of duplication, what you have to do is to pass the necessary entries to cancel one of the two entries made earlier. Okay, so now we come to the specific. Now, the specific case is that cash has been paid to AC, a creditor, and it has been recorded twice. So if you remember the technique I hinted you about, cash paid to AC, this is the transaction. What should have been done, or what is the right double entry you have to pass for this? If you pay cash to AC, then you'd have to debit AC and then you credit cash. That's a double entry for cash paid to AC, a creditor. So we would have credited cash 1,000, and then we would have debited AC with 1,000. I will spare the narrations or the details, right? So this is the right thing that should have been done. The error they made was that they opened AC's account all right, they opened cash account all right. Okay, so C for cash, E for AC. And this is what they did. They debited AC twice. So 1,000, number one, 1,000, number two. And they did same in the cash account. 1,000, number one, 1,000, number two. So they have recorded the transaction twice. Meanwhile, they should have just recorded it once. So to correct it, you have to pass an entry to do what? Cancel one of the duplication, or to cancel the duplication. Okay. So in this specific case, as we are analyzed, then if we want to correct this, we have to credit AC 1,000. So immediately you credit AC 1,000, you see that it cancels one of the cancels the duplication, and then you debit cash 1,000. And that one also cancels this one. And then you come back to the correct thing. So then the double entry will be to what? Debit cash, credit AC with the amount involved. Okay. I hope that is okay to us. Any question?
Yes, please. Oh.
Okay. So we move to the next error. The next error. We look at error of complete reversal of entries. Error of complete reversal of entries. Let's look at what this error is. So for this error, the name suggests what it is. Okay, so it occurs when a debit entry is made instead of a credit entry, and the corresponding credit entry is made instead of a debit entry. Josephine has a question or a contribution. Josephine, let me hear you.
Sir, please, good morning.
Good morning.
Please, about the error of duplication.
Okay.
The last example you gave, like after drawing the account.
Yes.
So the way you canceled it, it didn't end up as the actual principle how it's supposed to be. So is it that after that then you make the correct entry, or because I got confused at that part?
Okay, let me see if I can get to that point again for you. Okay, let me bring on the So Josephine, this was the one you were asking about, right? that the cancellation. So yes, I was canceling it out to just demonstrate to you that immediately you pass the correct entries, it cancels one of the two entries made earlier, right? But for you, your focus will be on to pass the entries. In fact, in your books as an accountant, you don't need to go and cancel them. Okay, as you balance your account, it will reflect, because originally, let me go back. Originally, this is how the accounts were going to show, right? So you would have ACE's account having 2,000 and cash having 2,000 because of the duplication. Originally, it should have been 1,000, 1,000, but because of the duplication, it's now 2,000, 2,000. Now, if we pass the right entries to remove the duplication, you see, if you balance this account, you will come to a balance of 1,000, and this one a balance of what? 1,000, reflecting the correct thing that should have been done. So I only cross them out to give you the indication of how your entries would nullify the duplication. Okay, so this is for working sake, but well, in your exams you don't need to cancel, so avoid the cancel. I hope you're confused.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you too. Okay, so let's move on. Error of complete reversal. We are saying that here the double entry has been reversed. So instead of maybe debiting A and crediting B, the accountant has reversed it. He has rather credited A and debited B. So it occurs when instead of when a debit entry is made instead of a credit entry, and a corresponding credit entry is made instead of a debit entry. Okay. So it means that the double entry has been reversed. Example. Sale of goods to Amma 300 was debited to sales account and credited to Amma's account. So look at it technical. Sale of goods to Amma was debited to sales and credited to Amma. So how would you even identify that this is an error? Unless you look at the transaction involved, which is sale of goods to Amma. And if you sell goods to Amma, what is the right entry you'd have to pass? Yes, if you sell goods to Amma, what is the right entry? Who do you debit, who do you credit when you sell goods to Amma? Prof. Bridget, sale of goods to Amma, who would you debit, who would you credit? Let me hear from Asada, Prof. Asada. If you sell goods to Amma, who do you debit, who do you credit? Yes. Okay, so I don't know if my students are having challenges with their connection, because the silence at their end is not very good. So as it has Zoe and Bridget, I don't know if you can alert me either in the chats or something if you are unable to speak. Okay. Let me hear from Joseph. Yeah, Joseph. Sold goods to Amma, who would you debit or credit?
You credit sales and debit Amma.
You credit sales and debit Amma. So with this knowledge, you can then determine that the accountant has made an error. Because if you sell goods to Amma, like you have indicated, you credit sales, you debit Amma. But rather, the sales account was debited. So it was debited to sales and credited to Amma. So the double entry has been reversed. So here, how do you correct it? And let me give you the pictorial view so that you can look at how you can correct this. So let me use, I think I have to use the green marker for. So the correct thing that should have been done is they should have opened sales. Permit me to use just the letters to represent the account. But since I'm adding explanations, you can make sense of it. So they should have opened sales account and Amma. So sales S and Amma A. So they should have credited sales with 300 and debited Amma with sales of 300. This is the right thing that should have been done. But what did they do, or what happened? Rather, so I'm using the red for the errors. So they opened sales all right, but instead of crediting, they debited sales. And then for Amma, instead of debiting Amma, they credited Amma. So you see that when you extract a trial balance, yes, the debit is 300, credit is 300, but something is wrong. Okay. And we always pass the entry on the wrong thing that has been done to be able to get the correct. So here, if you compare, you see that no, our sales should rather have 300 here at the credit, and Amma should have 300 at the debit. But that's what they have done. So how do we correct it? Let me get reactions from professors. Yes, Austin.
Sir, to correct this error, first of all, we need to pass an entry to credit sales now, and then debit Amma to cancel that wrong entry you've made now, and then we'll now credit sales again, and then we'll debit Amma, so that right now when we look at the account, we'll see that on Amma's account you have a debit and then sales you have a credit.
So you mean that we should first credit sales 300 and debit Amma 300. So when we do that, it will remove the reversal, and then we can now credit sales 300 and debit Amma 300, right? I think that's what you're saying, which is true. But in order to avoid, duplication of efforts, is not an error. It's just a waste of time, right? So instead of doing 300 and come to do 300, technically what you have done is you have credited sales with 600. You've debited Amma with what? 600. Okay. So in correcting this error, what you have to do is to double the amount. So let me state how to correct it generally, and then you see how it applies here. So to correct this error, what you do is you double the amount, and pass the necessary entries. Now we are saying pass the necessary entries because it's the nature of the transaction that will determine whether you are debiting or crediting which account. But fundamentally, you need to double the amount. So in this case, we would have credited the sales with 600 and debited AMA with 600. So you spare yourself the duplication of efforts by doing it one by one. Just double the amount and pass the entries. Okay. So Austin, that is a revision of what you said. Okay. Yes, Augustine Akoli, let me hear you.
Sir, please, why did you double the amount?
We are doubling the amount because you see, first of all, we needed to remove an amount and reinstate it, right? So let me go back.
Yes, sir.
So that you can get the sense out of it. So look at it. They should have credited sales and debited AMA, because when you sell goods to AMA, you debit AMA, you credit sales. So this is the right thing that should have been done. But they made a mistake. So look at it. Instead of sales having 300 at the credit, the 300 is rather at the what? At the debit. So what do you do to reinstate sales to have the credit of 300? And so Austin Akoli suggested that then let's put 300 at the credit side. Okay, when we put that 300 at the credit side, and again here, Josephine, I'm going to cancel again. I hope you are not confused. So when you put the 300 here, you see that it will cancel this one, and then you put another 300 here, which now makes your sales having the 300 at the credit when you compare. Likewise, in AMA's account, you put 300 here to first cancel it, and then you put the right 300 there. So if you look at this account technical, what we are having is 300 at sales and 300 at what? AMA, at the right side compared to the correct. But I'm saying that avoid this repetition. So instead of repeating 300, 300, 300, 300, double the figure. If you double 300, 600. So then your entries would have simply been like this. We'll double the amount 600, credit sales 600, and we debit AMA 600 to correct the error. So that's the point I'm making. That for all errors of complete reversal of entries, you double the amount involved and then you pass the necessary entries. Okay, Austin.
So when we double the amount, the first half will cancel the wrong entry, and then the last half will remain there.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah, Augustine, you still have an issue, come back.
Sir, please, I'm okay. Thank you.
Okay. So that's the essence of double the amount. You are doubling the amount so that, like Austin said, half of the amount will cancel, and then the remaining half will be there as the right entry. Yeah. Okay, so that is for error of complete reversal of entries. Complete reversal of entries. Now let's continue to the next error. I think 2 more to go. So I'll do this one. That is error of original entry. Error of original entry. Error of original entry. What is this error and how do you correct it? So listen carefully. Has it ever happened to you that you saw a figure on the blackboard when your teacher was copying a question? The figure on the blackboard was 5,600. But some way, somehow, when you were writing the figure in your notebook, you wrote 6,500. In fact, not even copying notes. Sometimes when you are under exams condition, you saw a figure in the trial balance. When you were writing it, you made a mistake. And the mistake here stems from you changing the positions of the figures. So instead of 5,600, you wrote 6,500. What have you done? You have changed the position of the figures, and that is technically referred to as transposition of figures. Transposition of. Okay, so what is this error? And what I've just given you is the basis for this error. It occurs when the accountant uses the wrong figure or uses a transposed figure in recording the business transaction. He uses the transposed figure in recording the transaction. So that means that he used that transposed figure, which is wrong, to do the debit and the corresponding credits. This statement is very important. He used the wrong figure or the transposed figure to do both the debit and the corresponding credits. Cases where he used the wrong figure, okay, to only do the debits or only the credits, but the other side of the double entry, he used the correct figure. That cannot be an error of original entry. So for original entry, the wrong figure should have been the figure that was used in doing both the debits and the credits. Okay, so let's write. It occurs when a transposed figure is used in recording the transaction in the books of account. So example, an asset purchased for $350 was recorded in the books as $530. So this is an error of original entry, and it's happening because you can see that the figures have been transposed, right? But you see, under exams conditions, sometimes you see that it's an error of original entry, but you may not be able to identify the transposition, because then maybe the examiner will go like, let me give an example here. Maybe the amount involved in the transaction was 2,000, but the accountant recorded it in the books as 3,000. When you compare these two figures, you don't see anything as transposition. No figure has been changed. The figure has just been inflated or overstated. Okay, but however, because the same wrong amount was used, okay, in doing the debit and credits, you can analyze it as an error of original entry, and it will be technically correct. Okay, so that is. So don't always look for the transposed figure before you say it's an error of original entry. But most of the times, error of original entry, you see that there is a transposition. Yeah, Austin.
So if one entry use the right figure and then the corresponding entry use the transposed figure, this is not an error of original entry.
Yes, it's not an error of original entry. Yes. Technically, I would have even preferred if, well, they could name this error again. But anyways, until I get to the status of being a scholar so that I can name the error well, let's take it as it is. Okay. So how would we correct this error? How do we correct error of original entry? Let's use the specific example here to get a clue, and then maybe we'll write the general how to correct it. So analyze this one. An asset purchased for 350 was recorded in the books as 530. So let's assess. The main transaction is you purchase an asset. So my dear professors, when you purchase an asset, who do you debit and who do you credit? If you purchase an asset, who do you credit and who do you debit? So you see that the double entry is going to haunt you here, right? It is going to haunt you. You need to revise your double entry. Yes, Austin.
So always we would debit the assets and then credit either cash bank.
Okay. So we will debit the asset and then we'll credit our cash book. Okay. When you are not sure of whether it was cash or check, you go for your cash book. But here in this case, it should be cash. Because if it's a check will be indicated, right? If there's no mention of the two, the best assumption is cash. So here we are going to debit the assets. So like I do, let me do the correct thing here. So the accountant should have correctly opened assets and opened cash. We should have debited assets with 350 and credited cash 350. This is what should have happened. But mistakenly, he opened assets, opened cash. Instead of using 350, this accountant, because of pressure from somewhere, debited asset with 530 and credited cash with 530. And here again, you can see that the entries are correct. So he did the debit and the credit correctly, but he's using the wrong figure. Okay. So comparing the two, how do you correct it? How would you correct it? Yes. But the person will get this one. I think I have a gift for you. Yes, any idea? Yeah, I see Austin. Okay, go ahead, please.
I think you'll find the difference between the 350 and then the 530, which is 180, and then you debit you credit it to the assets and then.
Okay, I don't know, your network was making your voice a bit, but I heard what you said, that we find the difference and then we pass the necessary entry, right? So that is key. For error of original entry, you always have to find the difference between the two figures. And what are the two figures? The two figures are the wrong figure and the correct figure. So when you find that difference, then you pass the necessary entry. So let me write the general correction. So find the difference between the wrong amount and the correct amount and pass the necessary entries. So in this specific example, we'll find the difference between the 530 and the 350, right? Which is going to give us 180. So what entries do we have to pass? Definitely we would have to credit the asset with the 180. But when you credit with the 180, you see that it's going to reduce the 530 to 350, right? So you credit the asset with the difference, 180. If you debit, you rather be increasing it. So you need to credit so that it reduces it to 350. And then in the cash account, you debit with 180 to reduce it. Okay, but the key thing is that you find the difference between the two figures and you pass the necessary entry. Okay, so there's error of original entry. Any question? Any question? Yes, please go ahead.
Sir, please. In the asset account, yes, we're crediting 118. But man, I know if we take a T account, for instance, like what you did in Wait Minute, what would you put in the details? Because I don't think you put in cash anything there. That's what it confuses me.
Okay. So the details really is the other account. So here, what were you doing? You debited cash 180 and the corresponding credits in what? The asset. So in the cash account, the 180 will have the details of assets, and in the asset account, so it's always the two account which you are doing the entries in that will have their correspondence as the narration. Okay. Good. Thank you for that question. So don't get confused. If you get your double entry right, you can tell the narration or the details, right? Okay. Is any other question? But also, I think you need to reposition yourself. Your network is making your sound a bit cloudy. So you speak like a robot. So please, I don't know if the others hear it. So please don't speak like a robot. Adjust yourself. Great. So the last one, the last error. That will be the error of compensation. Error of compensation. Now, this error by its nature looks a bit weird. Okay, but let's get to know what it is. Okay, so what does it mean? Error of compensation. So the errors are compensating each other, or they are canceling out each other. Okay, so for example, you mistakenly debited sales with 5,000. So you debited sales with 5,000 mistakenly, and then you went into another account and mistakenly credited that account with 5,000. You have made errors, but these errors are canceling each other. So let's say you debited sales 5,000, you went to expense and you credited expense to 5,000. Though you have made mistakes, because the mistakes are both on the debit and credits and of the same magnitude or the same amount, they are canceling each other. It's sometimes weird how this kind of error can occur, but it can really occur. So it occurs when two errors cancel each other. So you've made two errors, but because they are of the same magnitude, okay, when I say same magnitude, it means the amount involved was the same. And the error happened on the debit side and the corresponding credit side. They cancel each other. So we say it occurs when two errors cancel each other. Example. Please hold on for me. Let me check. Okay, so let's continue. So example, right? On 13th April 2026, the sales account was overstated by 500 and the cash account was overstated by 500. So look at it. Sales has a credit balance. So if you overstate sales, it means you have added to the credits 500. Cash has a debit balance and you have overstated that one too by 500. So you see that here you are overstating a credit and you are also overstating a debit. But because the amount involved is the same, they will cancel each other. So that's an error of compensation. How do you correct it? How to correct it? Here, the only thing you can do is pass the necessary entries based on the errors. Okay, the necessary entries based on the error that has occurred. You would really need to know the type of error that has been made, which are compensating each other before you can correct it. Okay, but in this specific one, you can then correct it, right? Because if sales has been overstated, what it technically means is that in your sales account, the credit has gone up by 500. So sales has been overstated. And in your cash account, which has a debit, it has been overstated by 500. So that's why you can correct it by debiting sales and crediting with cash. So you always need to know the errors that occurred so that you can accurately pass the entries to correct it. So that is the bit about compensating error. Now, let me make my students appreciate that under exams conditions, the highly examinable errors most of the time are omission, commission principle, and original entry and complete reversal. These are the ones that do appear. Compensating and duplication. Duplication, the examiners feel that it's so cheap, so they don't really. Even the omission, right? So the commission principle, complete reversal, and original entry, these four, they are highly examinable. Commission principle, complete reversal of entries, and original error of original entry, they are very highly examinable. But that does not mean when you see duplication, you say, oh, but I say you didn't see duplication. Okay, so these are the 7 errors that do not affect the trial balance. My dear professors, it will be very sweet on your part to go through these errors one by one, know how to correct them, because they will appear. And correction of errors is one of the highly examinable areas. So take note. Okay, I think I'll do a quick review. Our time is almost up. I'll do a quick review and then I'll ask for questions. So professors, today we continued with the errors that do not affect the agreement of the trial balance. There are 7 of them: omission, commission, principle, duplication, complete reversal, original entry, and compensation. Last time we were able to look at the 2, omission and commission. Okay, and then today we started with the principle. We said for the error of principle, it happens when the accountant makes the correct entry. So the debit or credit he did was correct, but he only put it in the wrong class or wrong type of account. So I gave examples. Maybe the business bought an asset, and instead of the accountant recording it in an asset account, went to record it in the expense. So an asset cannot be in an expense account. So that is an error of principle. Likewise, an expense cannot be in an asset account. So even if you pay for repairs or building, it's an expense. So you open repairs account. You can name it repairs or buildings account, but it's still repairs and expense. You don't put it in building asset account or asset building account. So I've given the examples here. When you sell assets, you don't put it in sales, you put it in disposal. When you purchase an asset, you record it in the asset account. You don't record it in purchases. Or purchase is only for goods, sales is also only for goods, right? So I gave you these clues and how to correct them. You just have to remove it from the wrong class, put it in the right class. Then error of duplication. We saw that here the transaction has been recorded twice. So what do? You pass an entry to remove one of it. Complete reversal. We say the double entry has been reversed. They were supposed to debit the account, but they credited it, and they were supposed to credit the account correspondingly, but they debited it, right? That is an error of complete reversal. What is crucial here is that if you are correcting it, double the amount. Okay. Original entry, we say that the accountant mistakenly transposed the figures and used it in recording the transaction, right? Or he used the wrong amount, whether it's due to transposition or whatever. He used the wrong amount to pass the double entry. So here too, when you are correcting, we say find the difference. Find the difference. Okay. Then compensating error, I think we concluded on that as well. So professors, these are the 7 errors that do not affect the trial balance. Now I want to give you some summaries so that you pay attention to them. If you realize, because these errors do not affect the trial balance, when we're correcting them, the debit and credits, okay, go into the 2 accounts in the error. There was no mention of suspense. Last time I hinted you that suspense account is created when there is a difference in the trial balance. So if you are correcting any error that affects the difference or that affects the agreement of the trial balance, then suspense will come in. Either you debit it or you credit that account. But for these errors that do not affect the agreement of the trial balance, you will not have any business with debiting or crediting the suspense account. So I wanted to conclude with that. So next time we'll look at the errors that affect the agreement of the trial balance. Please, questions. Okay, go ahead.
Sir, please, can you come again on the error of compensation?
Okay, so the compensating error or error of compensation, I said that the accountant makes mistakes. He actually makes 2 mistakes, but they happen to cancel each other. Okay, why is this possible? It's possible because maybe the first mistake was on the debit side, the second mistake was on the credit side. But because the mistake had the same amount, 5,000, 5,000, or 10,000, 10,000, or 23,500, 23,500, because the amount involved was the same, and he made the error at the debit side on one end and correspondingly on the credit side on another end, they will cancel each other. So when such errors occur, we say they are compensating errors or error of compensation. Yes, Joseph.
There, please. So according to what we've done, Does this mean that whatever an accountant do, the accountants can't avoid mistakes?
Oh, sure. The accountant cannot be, you know, a thing God. You make mistakes, and this is even it's even evident in your experience as a student. When you are solving accounting questions, you make mistakes. Sometimes when you are even preparing when you are doing your double entry, you read the transaction. You were going to debit one account. By the time you realize you have credited the account. So it happens. Or maybe sometimes you were punching your calculator to add the figures to balance your account and get carried down. You make mistakes. So it's that's why maybe now technology is, you know, helping, but still there are errors. So errors, if as human as we are, errors is part of our life. Just that when they occur, we investigate, find them, and then we deal with them.
Thank you.
Okay, so on that note, profs, if there are no further questions, I'll wrap up the class, but I think some of you owe me assignment. Let me see. So far, I think all those of you here, you have all. Let me check. Please hold on. Let me check. So, Prof. Aseda, also answer. You are owing me assignment. Yes, I think yes, you are the only person. Prof. Pujo didn't come to class. So, Prof. Aseda, kindly wrap up and check the assignment. Okay, so Prof, thank you very much for being in class. I appreciate it. I'll see you the next time.